Hey, how goes it, adventurers, and welcome to my review of Cube. Before we get started, you can click this annotation here to go back and see what my criteria for the different categories and subcategories that I'll be rating the game on are, how I define them. So I thought the graphics were really kind of enjoyable. They did a lot with a very, very simple concept of to basically make the whole level out of cubes. The whole ship was really well designed as far as like the looks of it and stuff. The stark, crisp colors were really, really nice. The lighting, it really enhanced the feel of having so little and making it so much. And I really, really liked the choice of colors. I think when you think about other things as well, most of the models, and you think, oh, it's cubes, but when you think about it, the gloves on the characters' hands, a lot of the models and stuff were really nice. It not only did what it was supposed to do, but it was really, really smooth and crisp. It wasn't the greatest thing by far. I have to say, for an indie game, it was pretty good. It was done well enough. So for the audio, the music was really, really enjoyable. It was calm through most of it and just enjoyable in all ways. The actual sounds that were used for the cubes moving around and those kind of things, they were simple, and they didn't get annoying to listen to too many times in a row. I think the one sound that I started to get very sick of was the clicking on something sound. The when you activated a block, the sound that your gloves would make. Just because you hear it so frequently, and there's thousands of times that you've got to click to make blocks do things. Particularly with like the magnets, that drove me fucking nuts. But yeah. Atmosphere. The atmosphere of the game as a whole was really nice. The way they pulled together, it sounded chill, it felt chill. Like I said, it felt a lot less like science was going to kill you than Portal, and it gave you more of a relaxed feeling. The lighting was great, especially in, and it's weird to say this, but the lighting was really good in the pitch black levels. The way they did it in such a way that it made the really bright colors even brighter. It had a good feel to it. It felt alright. It was no like Sword and Sorcery or something where it has lots of atmosphere and lots of amazing music, but it did better. So, gameplay. First off with features. They took a very, very simple concept of manipulating the level using cubes, and they stretched it about as far as I would have dared to possibly go. I feel like it was pretty well executed with such a simple idea, and there are lots of ideas and lots of games that have such a simple idea, and they do everything that you can do with it, and it just feels like a complete idea. It was pretty well thought through in most cases. That's when we get to design. I had a serious problem with the fact that there were slider puzzles, and it was like you've played on many other games, everything from like Pokemon and Final Fantasies and little games where there's like ice slider puzzle kind of thing, or like Resident Evil and Silent Hill wooden box sliding puzzles. They were very, very similar to those, and it would have worked well if they were actually like those. But the fact that they were doing it in the Unreal Engine and it was physics-based, the cubes got caught on everything. Every other puzzle I really, really enjoyed. I have to say the design was really well for all the jumping puzzles. everywhere where you had to manipulate the environment around you, really, really well done. Some of them were a little bit elementary, a little basic, but it did a good job of easing you into new ideas. Basically, the whole game was one giant tutorial that you didn't know you were playing, which is good. That's how a tutorial should be. A lot of the levels that were very, very easy at the beginning got very, very hard. It didn't feel like there was a tutorial at all, but those first few rooms of the level were definitely a tutorial. So the level design I thought was really, really well. It was just, it fell short and wasn't thought through in a few places that were like, yeah, this will work really, really well. And then it just, the inherent properties of the engine they were using just let it down completely. Aside from that, the other elements of design, like I found myself often in the pause menu just to take a break during that last stretch of the game, because, good God. But the menu, getting to the actual design elements of the GUI, was, it was simple, easy to use, but, when I went to quit out one time, it didn't tell me whether or not data would be saved or lost, so I didn't want to quit. I feel like they could have at least said, like, had a thing that said, you know, save data, or a warning saying that your data will not be saved if you exit. Would have been nice to have at least known, because I had to pause the game for a good half hour and then come back and then try and finish that, because I just didn't want to lose my shit and have to replay an hour, or even half an hour, which is going to say something about the replayability in a little bit. But the controls felt good. It felt at least the standard of an FPS, you know, running around, jumping. The part that I didn't like were the parts that were like a second-hand control, I guess you could say. The delay on the magnet blocks, coupled with the animation speed of the of you waving your hand to activate something, made many sections, especially during the slider bits, where you had to do very fine-tuned movement. It made the best efforts completely laughable, because there was no way to do it. Oftentimes, overtiming something by half a second meant you had to redo 10 seconds of the thing, which doesn't seem like that bad of a thing until you overtime it 7 or 8 times in a row, and then suddenly you've wasted a minute and a half just repeating the same thing that you've done over and over again. You know how to beat the puzzle, but the controls are letting you down. So, narrative and story and all of this is going to be a very short section, because the game didn't have too much of a story. At least it didn't tell you much of the story. You can tell that you were in some kind of ship between Earth and the Moon. There was some kind of catastrophic failure on the ship. It didn't tell it very well, if there was a story. The delivery was interesting, but it was kind of generic to something like Portal. It felt like it was trying to be Portal in something goes horribly wrong, and now situations have changed. I'll give them that it was a good device for giving you more interesting gameplay rather than just making a gauntlet of, you know, room after room that felt like room after room, because either way you look at it, it was room after room, but it felt a little bit better to take you in an unexpected way. But the story, there was a story, but it felt like it was thrown in there for story's sake. And that being said, the delivery was not that great, because it dropped you down an elevator shaft. There were sparks everywhere. Somehow something happened, you know, conveniently when you ended up at the beginning of the 5th chapter. And considering there was 9 cubes, I have a feeling maybe development time was running short, and they're like, you know what, let's just finish this. chapter 5 something will happen, we'll get up to chapter 7, and then that's good enough. But I don't know, I'm not the developers, but that's the impression that it gave me. And as far as relevance, it was generic. Maybe this is the sci-fi thing going on here. So if you like sci-fi things, maybe you'll look back at the end of the game and go, okay, well, it was sci-fi, I like it. But it wasn't very relevant, it wasn't delivered that well, and I can't tell you that there actually was a story, and if there was, it went over my head. So moving on to the meta. Survivability. I feel like this game isn't going to hold up to AAA titles, obviously, but it's an indie game. It was a pretty good puzzle game, but I don't know, it didn't do anything so exceptionally well that people would be like, hey, you gotta try QUBE. So, I don't know, I can't see people wanting to really go out of the way to get this in the years to come out of, you know, when you could just get Portal or any other thing like that. Now, if you're a fan of those kind of games, then maybe, yeah, this is an idea. But, I mean, there's other options out there, and it doesn't do a great job of surviving past those other options and those other titles. Even other mods and indie games. I'd probably much rather play Fez if I'm trying to play, like, a mind-bending indie puzzle game. Replayability. Aside from the fun of jumping around on those blue blocks, not a lot. I wouldn't play this again. Just, it doesn't have anything that I can do differently, other than maybe see if there's a way to cheat through some of the puzzles that I got stumped on. I had a lot of fun on one of the earlier ones where the room rotated and I just hopped off the damn thing. That was hilarious. Enjoyment, aside from that one slider section that was poorly thought out, and I'm not sure it was well tested, I feel like there was something to take away from the game as far as a puzzle game goes. But it wasn't something that would make me want to experiment with it. But I feel like as far as a puzzle game goes, it was a decent puzzle game. And I enjoyed the puzzle aspect of it. And I think that there were some good elements there that made it a bit unique, a bit novel, and something that, you know, made me go, whoa, this is pretty neat. But that's about all I can really say. It was good enough to keep my attention through a good portion of it. Looking back on it, I think if they had made the entire game more of a first-person puzzle platformer, if they got rid of the parts of the game that made it where it was all about clear this puzzle to go to the next room, it would have been a lot more enjoyable. It was way too much about get from one room to the next room by solving this puzzle, and less of use this puzzle to get yourself into the next room, which is what I thought it should have been more of. Those are my thoughts on QUBE. If you enjoyed this review, I'll do more of them in the future. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys later.